The Clippers.
Big win. They showed their resiliency once again, and they staved off elimination with a nice, solid win
14-point
over the
win.
Phoenix Suns. Yes. It wasn't a blowout, but they had control late in the game. And now it's 3-2. The Phoenix Suns are up. They play Game 6 in L.A. tomorrow night, and then maybe a Game 7 would be in Phoenix. I picked Phoenix in 7, so we'll see where this goes. I think you picked the Clippers.
Yes.
So here's the thing, Rob. There are two. I want to call it a tale of two stars. Let's call it that. Chris Paul, who everyone, some people have thought he should have been the MVP this year. He was first team All NBA this year. It was a great year for him. Not only with his play, but with his legacy. Like, he enjoyed an enhancement of his legacy because he led this team that had not made the playoffs in a decade, that, wasn't in last year, to not only the playoffs, but the second best record in the league and the Western Conference Finals. So we've talked about if he leads them to the finals or especially to a championship, then a lot of people are saying he would solidify his place as a top 5 point guard. But I want to throw something else at you, Rob. What if it goes the other way? What if the Clippers win this series? I want to ask you this question. What would be impacted more? The legacy of Paul George in a positive way, or the legacy of Chris Paul in a negative way?
I think it's Paul George, who had 41 points, Chris, and was as efficient as you can be.
75%. He's the first player ever to do what he did.
Right? 15 for 20. And what did he have? How many rebounds?
13 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals. He's the first player in the 74-year history of the NBA to post 40 and 13 and shoot 75% from the floor.
In a playoff game. It's incredible.
Big night.
Big night. Big night, right. But I think it would be Paul George, Chris, from this standpoint. And I get the, Chris Paul angle, but for Paul George to be able to do what he's doing with no Kawhi Leonard, that's what enhances it for me. That without Kawhi Leonard, no Kawhi, no way, should be what people have been yelling. As soon as Kawhi got hurt, right, Chris? They can't win. How are they going to win? They don't have their main guy. And I know they're still down in the series, but the series doesn't feel over to me, Chris. Not after last night. That was a game.
They've actually outscored Phoenix in the series.
Am I right? Yeah.
They've outscored them.
You talked about it the other day, yesterday. There were a couple of missed free throws, Chris, and playing down the stretch from this series possibly being over, and the Clippers have already won in those games that they lost.
Right.
That's how close it is, and you just said it. They've outscored Phoenix. And Devin Booker, I know he had, 31 last night?
Yep.
Didn't feel good. And Chris, he doesn't feel like the same guy that started the series. I think he had 40 game 1, and everybody was
13,
ranting, right? Ranting and raving about Devin Booker. I know his nose kind of got broke, and now they've got the pit bull on him, Patrick Beverly. And that's changed some stuff
Patrick Beverly
too.
is the epitome.
Am I right?
Of the statement, love to have him on your team, hate him if he's an opponent. He's the epitome of that. Because I would hate him if I was playing against him. But I would love to have him on my team.
You know when I actually loved Pat Beverly, the thing that made me enhance why I like him as a player? Lonzo's first game with the Lakers. You remember, Chris?
Yep.
Picked him up
94 feet.
94 feet. Like, dude, come on. I done been all over the world trying to get into the NBA, and you're this guy, and everybody's ranting and raving. Come on and dribble the ball up. I'm going to make you work for it. I just love that.
Right. Nah, he's a grinder. For me, and look, Chris Paul's, I mean, again, I've said if they win this championship, and I think they have a shot, I think he becomes, certainly in my book, definitely the 5th best point guard in history, behind Magic, Steph, Oscar, and Isaiah. But if he loses this series, Rob, Chris Paul, they were up 2-0 without Chris.
And 3-1.
2-0.
Right. Yeah, you're right. 2-0
But
without
him, I mean with him not playing because of COVID.
Right.
He comes back, and now they've lost 2 of the last 3 games.
Right.
Get this, Rob, because we know Chris has had his struggles in the clutch at times in the playoffs. I think it was 2014 when Game 5, it was a huge turning point in the series with OKC. Series tied at 2. Looks like the Clippers are going to take a commanding 3-2 lead. And Chris just falls apart in the last 45 seconds. Ball stolen from him, some turnovers, fouls, and they lose the series. 2015, they have a 3-1 lead on the Rockets. They lose the series. We talked about this last week, I think, or you and I talked about it before, Rob. A couple years ago when he was still with the Clippers. Yep. They're playing Utah. He has a great game.
Game 6, and he wet the bed in Game 7.
Yep.
Remember that? He played great in
Fell off
6.
in Game 7. And so, get this statistic. This is going to wow all of you guys.
Wow.
This would be the This would be the 4th playoff series that Chris Paul lost after leading 2-0.
Really?
Guess how many playoff series Jason Kidd, John Stockton, and Steve Nash have lost combined after leading 2-0?
0. Yep.
Think about that. And I'm not putting it all on Chris, but think about that. The point guard is in control. The point guard can set the tone. And so it would be a big hit on Chris Paul if they lose this series. There are already those out there, Rob, who've said when he came back or before he came back, hey, the Clippers got a better chance with him playing because they play slower with him.
Right.
And the numbers do show that they've been, at least in this series, more effective without Chris than with him. But all that said, I'm with you, Rob. I think the greater impact, yes, it would affect Chris Paul's legacy. Probably all the stuff about him being the 5th best point guard ever and all that. That would probably cease. But he's still a Hall of Famer. And most of us, Rob, let's face it, Chris is 36. Before this season, we felt like he is what he is, right? He's a great point guard. He's a Hall of Famer. He's never going to win a championship. He's had his struggles in the playoffs. He's had some great moments, some bad moments. And so, yeah, it would be a negative mark, but at the end of the day, he's still getting in the Hall of Fame first ballot.
Right.
Paul George,
agree with that.
I said, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I said last week on Undisputed, I said Paul George is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I believe he's in the process of strengthening his case, right? A performance like last night, this whole playoffs when he's had his ups and downs, there's no doubt. But he scored 20 points in 18 straight games.
Right.
You know how many players have done that in history?
How many?
3 others. Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jordan.
That's pretty impressive company right there.
Right?
Wow.
So what I'm saying, I said this today, Rob, on TV. If they win this series, he's not probably a Hall of Famer anymore. He's a Hall of Famer. And I feel that. I think he's a Hall of Famer if they win this series, Paul George.
That's how big this series is, especially, Chris. What you're talking about is without Kawhi.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the other part. Is without Kawhi.
The first time ever a team would come back from 3 straight series in which you were down 0-2, and you did it in the last 2 without Kawhi Leonard. The numbers, his shooting percentages are not that great. He's not that efficient. But at the end of the day, he's putting up numbers and they're winning. And so that's how big I think it would be for Paul George, Rob.
No,
I really do. And I'm not putting him with Durant, LeBron. You know what I mean? He's not in that class, but I think he would be a Hall of Famer.
But this would be and Chris, this would be a watershed moment. No doubt about it. And I really believe that they have a shot to win this because of other than Chris Paul, all those guys are young. You know how hard it is to close out. Chris, last night you're at home. Everybody in Phoenix is ready to party like it's 1999. No Zubac, no Kawhi. Am I right? Tell me.
Right. And the reports were that they were devastated in the locker room.
Oh, I
when
bet.
They found out Zubac wasn't playing. He was giving them 13 and 11 in this
No,
season.
he was playing for them, right? Yep. And that he wasn't going to play, and for them to win, like you said, in control. It wasn't a blowout, but they were in control of that game. They seemed like they had a handle on it, and they were poised to win it, and they didn't give in. Paul George had an unbelievable third quarter. So yeah, I think this is real. I think what Paul George and what the Clippers are doing, Chris, this might be the way you exercise all those demons. You know what I mean, that they've had, because it's been a struggle the whole way through. And you notice when they were down 2-0 to Dallas after losing the first two games and being down big in Game 3 in Dallas, people were talking about breaking the team up. It was a failure. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and now look where we are. It's amazing.
Right. Absolutely.